Welcome folks, around the grounds to the Wimmera soil moisture and soil temperature update. Since last time we've had some rain and hot weather and a little bit of frost, but the good news is 18 of the 27 paddocks have greater than 50% moisture. You'll see here central, northern and western summaries, and the top paddocks that are in the blue are fallow paddocks. So this is the central Wimmera. The majority of paddocks are more than half full, and with a couple going into the orange zone. Northern Wimmera, most of the paddocks again are more than half full, and with some paddocks starting to draw down further. And in the West Wimmera, still very moisture savvy over there, and in a good position for the rest of the season.
At 5 o'clock this morning.
This is just some temperature data that came out of the probes as well on the
6:30 now
of the 10th of the 10th. Just had our live webinar over lunchtime, the second version of Around the Ground. Thanks for organising this. Could you just remind viewers about the project and who it's funded by and what the purpose of the project?
Yeah, sure can. So the Wimmera CMA has delivered this project using funding from the Australian Government's Future Drought Fund. And the purpose of the soil moisture probe network and the data portal is really based on the forecasting and climate predictions that have come out for the Wimmera, which indicate that the Wimmera will experience more dry days, more weather extremes, and hotter weather. So given that the Wimmera is a broadacre cropping region predominantly, we know that soil moisture and temperature can be drivers of profit and productivity for our grain and cropping regions. So the data that we are able to take from the soil moisture and weather stations in the Wimmera can help us manage risk when it comes to cropping. So it might be at sowing time or just in the lead up to sowing time, we can make decisions about what we do sow and where we sow it. And then we can also make decisions throughout the growing season when it comes to fertiliser applications and the like, when we're keeping a good eye on the soil moisture in there. The portal, as we've seen today, was it's mentioned today by Kate. Not only can we see some really valuable soil data, but the weather station provides us some really interesting information, particularly in terms of temperature, which we explored today, but also wind speed, direction, humidity, and delta T. So there's some really good, valuable information in there for Wimmera farmers, agronomists and consultants when it comes to weather, as well as soil moisture.
You can look at the whole region if you're someone who's sort of trying to just get an overview, and then if it's your own weather station and on your place, you can go in and get detail from the last season or just the last few days and narrow down and see how many hours, really quickly, how many hours of temperature you've had in that, I guess, frost risk zone. We also spoke today about frost risk, and we were lucky enough to have Kelly Angel come and join us from Burke Cropping Group, and Kelly's been involved in various frost research and extension projects over the last decade. What were some of Kelly's take-home messages?
The take-home messages for me really were making sure that you're regularly checking your crops and checking for for frost damage, so particularly in areas that you know are prone to frost.
I guess Kelly's main point was that low temperatures don't always mean damage, and some paddocks are more prone than others, and the fact that we've got a lot of moisture underneath most crops allows those crops to recover from those temperature events. And she also talked about the length of temperature being sort of 2 degrees or below is important. And where we've seen really bad damage in over the years is when you get extended periods below zero, and we haven't had that yet. We've just had an hour or two in most cases. The caveat on that, of course, it's very variable, spatially variable across the region. So if you've got an area that's a little bit prone to frost, or you've got some paddocks that might not have as much moisture under them as others, and if they're flowering or in the early stages of grain fill, yeah, it's worth having a look and getting your agronomist to come and give you a hand with that, I reckon. Bronwyn, are there any other things that you'd like to tell people about the project?
The first thing is that the portal exists, and its purpose is to support farmers in the Wimmera. So we're really encouraging farmers locally to take a bit of time. It is a little bit time consuming to begin with when you're starting to navigate your way around the website, but it's incredibly worthwhile and valuable. So I would recommend that you put aside half an hour if you can to log in. You can find the data portal via the Wimmera CMA website. So once you've logged in, head to the resources tab and check out some of the YouTube clips that Tim's put together that walk you through how to use the site so you can get the best out of it. And it will save you time in the end if you do have a look through the resources tab. So I'd recommend checking that out. And then, yeah, regularly, sort of making it a bit of a habit, I guess, regularly checking the data portal and looking at some of the soil moisture probe and weather stations that are around your farm.
And I guess that's the value of this. The value of the portal is that you get access to up to 70 different sites, so you can get an overview, you know, in areas where you might have paddocks but you don't have your own weather station. So yeah, there's a lot on the portal, and I've really found it valuable since I've started using it more regularly and getting to know my way around it. And what else is coming up for this project, Bronwyn?
Yes, good question. So at the moment, we're at the point where we have 72 soil moisture probes and a similar number of weather stations throughout the catchment. There are a few blank spots in the catchment that we would like to see some more soil moisture probes or weather stations installed. So we'll look to that in the future. For the moment, though, we're really at the stage where we're keen to make sure as many farmers as possible know about the portal and are accessing it and using it to help them with their decision making.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for that little chat, and yes, we'll add onto the end of this video. We'll add some summaries of some of the information we talked about today. And where can people get in touch with you if they want any more information?
The best place would be to give me a phone call, actually. So phone number's 0427 529 232.
And we talked about temperature, Bronwyn. Back to, I guess, the main topic of conversation, which is soil moisture probes. What were the take-homes there?
Oh, given the time of the year we're in and the Bureau of Meteorology declaring an El Nino, I guess a lot of us in the farming community might automatically start to think about things drying out. But the soil moisture probes sort of collectively across the Wimmera are actually indicating that there is good reserves, particularly at depth. So during the webinar today, we did look at some graphs that indicated that there is some drawdown, particularly in that first 20 or 30 to 80 centimetres, as you'd expect. That's actually a good sign at this time of the year. And some of the soil moisture probes are also indicating that they're just beginning to use some of the soil moisture at depth. But it's reassuring to see that sort of soil moisture at this time of the year and heading into what's forecast to be a dry season. So it's good news.
Yeah, it's a really good summary, and you know that basically of those 70 odd probes, we looked extensively at 30 of them, and 27 of those 30 are in crop. 3 of them are in fallow, and of those 27 that were in crop, 18 are still have moisture greater than 50%. So that's really unusual for this time of year when it's the biggest drawdown on crops. So we've got a great buffer there, and it wouldn't surprise me if there's some yield achievements that are higher than people expect, because you know we automatically think when it's not raining we're not going to get the yield, but this year that subsoil moisture is holding us in good stead. So that's a fantastic outcome.
Absolutely. Yep, it's great to see. In fact, really, I guess in real time we can see it on the soil moisture probe data portal that is actually looking good. We're not going by rule of thumbs or the occasional having a look at the soil with the shovel out in the paddock. We can see it across the catchment with the data with the portal. It's great.
And that's and I guess that's a really good point you've made. Research tells us that if we're using data, we're more likely to engage the logical part of our brain rather than the emotional part of our brain. So I really think this hard data that's being created across the airwaves is a way that will help us make better decisions, because we're using concrete data and we're able to validate our gut feel.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope, particularly at the moment, it's helping people not panic with when there hasn't been a lot of, or some of the rain recently has been a bit patchy. And of course, there is the forecast for drier times ahead. So hopefully this is helping reduce concern to some extent.
Yeah, that's the intention of it, and to be able to make more informed decisions in regard to harvest logistics, grain selling, and for those that may have copped some frost damage, to be able to look at salvage options and the impact on grain quality as well. All right, well, thanks, Bronwyn, and I reckon we'll call it an afternoon.
Wonderful. Thanks, Kate, and thanks, Dale, for your sharing your skills and expertise with us. We're really incredibly grateful.
Yeah, good point there, and also a shout out to BCG and Kelly Angel, who came on board at very late notice to give us some real-time advice. G'day, Dara. Welcome back. Thought we'd have a bit of a chat about the presentation we gave at lunchtime and just go through some of the numbers.
Yeah, hi, Kate.
What are we looking at?
Yeah, so this is the landing page of the bush links. Once you log in and enter your password, this is what I see. This is the current temperatures across the weather station network with the Wimmera CMA. And associated with these weather station sites is the moisture probe data, so we can get great value whichever way you want to go and look at it. Data for temperature and growing season rainfall, and yeah, look at the effect of the growing season rainfall with soil moisture. First things first, though, is this such a great learning by clicking on that resource tab, and then this is where there's quite a lot of instructional YouTube videos about all the ins and outs of the site, including interpreting soil moisture, and there's 2 of those, but I can go into some more detail of some specific sites of how I analyze and interpret data. And so to do that, it's by clicking on the dashboard there. So that's going to be your friend, and by clicking on that, you can then activate any of the sites that you've got particular interest in. So what I thought we'd do initially is to go through and look at the central Wimmera site at Jung.
Yep. Yeah, so have a look at the Jung soil probe.
If I just bring this up to a view that I like to look at. So we've got essentially 4 charts of soil moisture, and I'll just go through those. So Jung, if I click on here, it will bring me to the summed soil moisture trace. So what we've got is a 1.2 metre capacitance probe measuring soil moisture. So that's a consistent across all the sites. So it's great, starting at 20 centimetres and measuring down to 1.3. We've got, and this will be a great value add year on year. So 2022 with the green trace here, and then we're tracking with 2023. So we can deactivate any particular year to focus in on a particular year. And if we're looking at our current soil moisture status at Jung, quite simply, a good carryover of moisture from last year, a build up in winter, and then we started to see that depletion. So at Jung, we had lentils in 2022, and it's got wheat growing at the moment. And ever since the start of September, late August, we've seen this drawdown in soil moisture in the absence of rainfall to meet those water requirements. It's quite evident. We can see the stepping effect as well.
So that step, that's each day, is it? That the plant's growing and it has a little rest at night and then goes again.
Yep. That's associated with photosynthesis and consuming that water during the day.
It's fascinating, and you can see there where it got a bit warm and took a couple of really big licks out.
That's right.
Towards the end of the month.
So what we've observed in the past is high yield potential crops, high biomass, they certainly do consume a lot of water, and that's the advantage if you've got deep soil moisture reserves. They provide that buffer and can still provide readily available water to the crop when we've got a miss with rainfall, and we certainly had a miss with rainfall during September. And I guess all the Wimmera sites that are on this network with a rainfall range of 5 to 20 mil on the 2nd October, we didn't see any moisture improvement because we had such a dry profile. All it did was give a short pause in the depletion of the deep moisture, and then within less than a week, it had recommenced to start taking that deeper moisture again.
And I guess if that wasn't there, you can imagine where we would have got to if the moisture consumption had continued at the same rate that it was going through.
Yeah, and this is where we got the confidence for this cropping season here. Deep moisture, a connection and a build up, and pretty much you could say this is going to be a field capacity point for this site, which was achieved during that winter period.
Fantastic.
So
you can learn a lot from one graph once you know how.
One graph. So that's the one I go to first. Then I'll like to look at the breakdown of where the sensors are. The bush links have done this quite smartly because I can deactivate the summed, and then we can just look at they call it the upper and the lower. So the upper is a combination of the sensors from 20 centimetres to 70 centimetres. And the lower, which is this red line here, is the combination of all the sensor values from 80 centimetres down to 1.3. So a lot of the time we're going to see the action within the upper sensor summed trace. And then we're starting to now see with the lower that there's actually moisture extraction with the wheat crop moving in as we're struggling to source that shallow moisture. It's seeking more, so that's where it's starting to pick it up down deeper. So that's a great tool here. Default, we look at 12 months or all the data, but we can certainly zoom in and look at specific time sequences, and these preset tabs are a great advantage. So I'd certainly recommend to look at those, and then to get to see the detail of actually what was happening with the upper 20 centimetres to 70 centimetres. We click on this. This is the one you've always got to have a bit of patience about because it is drawing in a lot of data.
There you go off and make a cup of tea.
Yes, and I find that this does work quite well on a desktop, and I think that's the essential thing to do. Phone can be a quick glance on a small screen, but if you want to interrogate the data, you're looking at your PC desktop screen, and these sensors are just stacked as they're found in the soil profile. So if I drag this down here,
It
you can
might
see
be a
it's
laptop
20,
in front of the
30.
telly job in the evening rather than a phone in the ute job.
Yep. So 20 centimetres, 30, and just progressing down. It's probably been an eye opener, and may have been a shock to see crops, draw moisture from down deep. But we've seen that in the past, that once they get established, root development can progress at a centimetre a day plus. So we've got the root systems in place to tap into the reserves that are there. Now I'd just say that 20 centimetres, it was acquiring the moisture pretty freely, and then it's starting to slow it up about here. So it's obviously getting to a point of wilting where it can't extract any more moisture from that particular zone, and then that's where it rapidly depleted the moisture from those deeper depths. When we look at detail of the effect of the rainfall that fell here at Jung, all it did was pause that moisture depletion at all those depths. Didn't actually increase it to 20, so we can get a good understanding of infiltration associated with rainfall.
That's and so we should have some good data by the end of the year then, in terms of the plant available water critical factors and the critical
Yes,
numbers.
that's right. Yep. And this is another important fact that we could see that this moisture wasn't used by the lentils last year. Obviously, it was a very wet spring. So, a lot of these sensor values, we've established upper limits, and the way they're progressing without further rain, we'll probably go to get some lower limits to those as well.
The advantage of having two very different seasons, one after the other.
Yes.
Okay, where would you like to go now?
Get this mouse back. And the other feature with this is to look at the lower sensors, 80 centimetres to 1.3. And a lot of the time, we're not going to see a lot of activity with those, but in big cropping years and a drier spring, and if there's moisture there, we'll see that the effect of these crops will seek that deeper moisture. So 80, 90, 1.1, that's where the moisture's, and it's actually really getting into it in a day like today with your low teens, a great growing day. It's seeking that moisture.
And I guess that gives us a lot more insight than we used to have when we sort of, just took a 0 to 60 guess at moisture at the beginning of the year and dug a few holes, and that was about it.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. And it is a small reference point we're measuring, but I've done enough validations to those points with coring tubes and physically examining moisture. I've got a lot of trust in this data.
It's
and it's still early days. It just gets greater value year on year with this.
Yeah, it's magnificent.
So we can look at another site. So Warwick Nabil was another one we're going to look at. Warwick Nabil 2. Moisture probe.
Another lentil stubble?
Yes. Wheat last year, lentils this year. The green line's 2022. Probably a good carryover of moisture, which is the way it looked into 2023. Some April rain, a boost in winter, field capacity maintained for a long period of winter, and then we started to see that drawdown in soil moisture occurring, the end of August and progressing pretty hard through September. Again, that pause in that depletion of moisture, and that's recommenced again now. So pretty handy to look at that. And we can certainly see the stepping effect as well.
Yep.
With the lentils. Again, for another quick snapshot of what's happening with the upper and the lower combination of the sensors, I just again switch off the summed, look at more detail. Upper is the green, gets a lot of the activity, drawing down that moisture in September, and lentils probably not making a big go at it at this stage, but it looks like there is some activity occurring.
Sorry, it's lentils last year. Wheat this year.
Oh,
Yep.
Lentils last year, wheat this year, is it?
Yep, but it would have been very wet, so it's
Look at the upper individual stacked sensor chart. It will tell the story of where the moisture is being used from. Just taking a while to load up, but yeah, there's this springtime activity depletion. I'd certainly encourage you to play around with these different preset tabs. 3M equals 3 months, and we can look at in more detail what's happened in the last 3 months.
Yeah, so you can see those daily steps.
Yes. Yep, and when you can't see the steps, that would indicate that that's getting near a wilting point. So at 20 centimetres, crop can't physically extract the moisture it wants, so it's now sourcing it from the deeper depths. There's the pause with the October 2 rainfall, and then it's recommenced moisture use in a short period later.
Very good.
So that's a good one. And then we can also the West Wimmera, and that was Burke.
Yes.
Burke South.
Yep. This is canola on a wet stubble, and
this is a site that's actually got data going back to 2021. So it's you can pretty clearly identify which year it is by the colour, and you can actually switch them off if you want from down here. But being very little change, I'd say, that's been a field capacity moving into probably some saturation this winter. And then if you want to put your trace, about the 10th of September is when we've observed that movement down and the extraction of the moisture.
And is the orange line, sorry, Dale, just going back onto that one, is the orange mark down the bottom of the orange mark,
yep.
Is that giving us an indication there that, there's still quite a bit of moisture to go?
Yes, that's the driest point that's been recorded.
Yep.
Probably installed late, if I click on that. Yeah, so installed pretty late in 2021 October. That might have been just a settling in period. But, they're all key observations by these traces to start to identify upper limit, lower limit, and therefore this is plant available water, but it could move lower than these values here at 450. But I'd be very confident to say that upper field capacity is going to be around the 680, 690 sort of mark.
Yep.
Yeah. So they're just capacitance values, they're not moisture.
Yeah, sure. Yep. So it's just the relative values that's important here, not the actuals.
Yep. And we could probably just move straight into the individual stacked sensors. We don't think we need to look at the upper combination and the lower. But canola, just doing its thing, just really getting a move on and acquiring as much water as it could quickly, commencing.
There's a real trend that we've noticed, isn't there, across the probes, that canola has that capacity to extract water at depth.
Yep, it appears to set its root system up, and then when it goes into stem elongation, the water demands are large, and the root system's in place, and it'll just bring it up, not from just shallow depths, but all depths to meet that water requirement that it has. And again, we're seeing no response. It's just a pause in the lane.
Yep.
There's actually still, even despite the rain, it kept on.
Yeah, that one's still
seeking
going with it, isn't it?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, okay, well, that's fantastic, Dale, to get a bit of a feel for how to interpret those graphs. And this is
And then
an
just
interesting little factor that you're about to share.
yes, so it's all reflective of the biomass that's above with the moisture probes. It's quite reflective, and it looks here we've got Broughton and vetch growing 2023, using quite a lot of water through that September period, but it's ceased here with the cutting of the vetch, and then it's just gone into that flat line. So a flat line indicates no change in soil moisture, no leaf area, no photosynthesis, no moisture use.
And that's really comforting for the grower there to be able to know that, you know, what moisture is sitting there will be conserved from now on.
Yes, yep. Come next year, it might be disconnected moisture
Yep.
down deep, but we'll have to see a top up to get deep soil moisture connected.
Very good.
To bring it into play.
Should we jump over to temperature?
Yeah, sure. Get this mouse back. Data, it's all on this drop down menu. Probably the one where we've got the interest in is if we activate the map type to become a surface map, becomes a heat or a chill map. I've got the example of a chill event this morning, but by plotting temperature, it gives a good visual effect of warmer, cooler, and moderate here.
Yeah,
it's got a good feature here that you can bring it back. It's got 4 hours, and you can look at what was happening with the air temperature from 1 o'clock today.
Can you zoom in to get a little more resolution if you've got an interest in a particular area, Dale, or does it?
Oh, you can.
Yeah, there you go. Learn something every day. This
You do.
Called learning in action, people.
And that's why that resources tab on the left-hand side, I couldn't emphasize enough that navigate your way through that, and you got to get the maximum benefit of this site.
Or if you're like me, get a mate to navigate their way through it, and then
yeah.
teach you.
So we can activate a site, and that'll come up with the current data of its last reading from 4:45 on the 10th of October.
How do we delve in? Everyone's very curious about the early morning temperatures at the moment. How can we have a look at what's been happening at nil over the last few weeks and few hours? And,
so if you just click on the dashboard, it comes up with a similar display with the soil moisture, a number of charts, lots of charts to examine, including the rainfall. But if we look at the temperature, then we can see the effect of some chilled mornings in the last week. So we've got all the data here, so it looks pretty messy, but we can certainly tidy it up pretty quickly by going to the preset tab to look at 1 week. We can switch off the dew point, humidity, and then just isolate temperature.
Could we look at that let's take a look at, say, the month?
Over a month, of course. Yeah.
1 month. And
Oh, yeah, because
gives you a really quick look at those the days when temperature got a bit low, doesn't it?
yep. So you've got the 22nd of September where it dipped below 0. We've also got the 29th, and then the last 4 nights here. It's a great scroll bar feature here, so you can just scroll that.
Look at any month.
Yep.
It's fantastic. Well, how about we go back to the last couple of days and take a closer look.
If you want to just look at, let's look at a week.
Yeah, sure.
And we've got, let's look at Sunday. If I can hold my hand steady enough, we can get that. It's the 0 about 3 o'clock, and then moved from out of 0 at what's that, 7:30?
Yeah, that's long enough time, isn't it? 3.5 hours. And I guess there is a bit of a rule of thumb, but that anything under 2 degrees at this screen height could mean that the areas of the canopy could be as low as 0, and anything at 0 could be as low as -2. That's not a hard and fast rule, but there is a bit of a trend that's been reported in the past.
Yep, but this would certainly be a trigger to plan further investigations into the field and paddocks to see if there were impacts from these temperature drops.
Yeah, Bronwyn and I had a chat before, recapping the messages from Kelly Angel about looking at this data, and it's important not to go into panic mode, but just be aware that it is worth going and having a look once you get temperatures around this range. And it's the conversion of, I guess, low temperatures to damage is a very complex phenomenon, and low temperatures don't always mean damage, and sometimes marginally low temperatures can lead to unexpected damage, particularly if there's moisture stress, for example. And obviously topography is really important. So if you know areas that have been frosted in the past because they're low lying and the cold air tends to drain towards them, they'd be the first ones to go and have a look at.
Yeah, that's right. And I think probably some notes about where these weather stations are located and some elevation measurements might be a good value add to this.
That's right, because they will vary for each site holder. Some will be in lower spots than others.
Now, can I show you another feature?
Yeah,
Okay.
please do.
So I did indicate that we can get this map with heat and chill, and we can go back to this morning to see just how it progressed. So we've got to get measurements every 15 minutes. And if I click on play here, we can progress it from.
So this is something you prepared earlier?
This is something I can prepare earlier because generally that's a 4-hour that we can recall from, but I've loaded up to start from midnight. So at the moment we're at 2:30 in the morning this morning, and we can see these temperatures starting to come down, indicated by the blue. We're at 4 o'clock now, and we're dropping below 0 in some sites. Now we're at 5 o'clock this morning. $6:30 now. To where we are now. Yep. this morning when the sun come up. So, what a feature to get a snapshot of what was happening across the Wimmera with the advantage of this weather station network across the region. And as I said, it's a 4-hour recall. So if you had suspicions, you'd be up at 7, 8, and you could click on this feature and you could go back to 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock and play it through and just see how it changed over the early morning period.
Wow, that is really valuable data.
Mm. And really, this is just a small snapshot to
Yeah, absolutely.
get on that resources tab and explore further.
Yeah, I look forward to hearing what else you find on the resources tab in.
Yeah. But I love my soil moisture, and hopefully we've been able to get some insights into those specific sites, and could only encourage you to pick your localized site from this network and look further into it.
I think it's like the take homes for me is that water use and sharp water use is actually a good thing. We want crops to be using water at this time of year. And the other take home for me is just how quick you can get a snapshot of what temperature's done in this critical period, and some really fantastic resources there for informed decision making.
Yes, and that's what it's all about. Yep, grabbing that data, unknown data that would in the past, and now we've got a visual eye of what's happening underneath that soil surface.
Yeah, it's been a game changer.
Yeah, yep. So that's around the grounds and a game changer for the insights we've been able to highlight today.
I really appreciate you giving us that update, Dale, and no doubt viewers can keep abreast of what you do from the Break website and the soil moisture extension Oz platform as well.
Yes, yep. And we're seeing consistencies with that network as well that we've been able to put on that dashboard. High biomass, high yield crops have been using water. We've actually got a few crops that have been brown manured and one in fallow at Birchip, so they're still blue. That's the carryover. They'll carry moisture over for season 2024. So there's a whole diversity of results based on what's growing above or not growing at that monitoring site.
Okay, and
yeah, now we've got wheat crops flowering, progressing into grain fill. It is the time to go out and just assess density of crops, how the heads are filling, because then we can match it up to what moisture they were acquiring at the time. Good solid grain fill would be attributed to acquiring moisture. We'll be able to track that.
And you did mention earlier today that like it's good to sort of do that assessment in a bit of a 2-step process. Have a look now and then come back and have a look in a couple of weeks' time.
That's right, because probably at this stage it could be a bit of a guess of how wide the wheat might be filling. In 2 weeks' time, you should have it in your head that, okay, I estimated it was 3 and sometimes 4 wide. Just go and validate that in 2 weeks' time and make sure it's progressing like that. And hopefully that's the case. And maybe might be a chance to ask questions if it's not.
Very good. All right, I might get you to stop sharing your screen, and you can say goodbye to everybody.
Yeah, great, and well done to the Wimmera CMA on aggregating all these data points to the one platform. I know it's a real challenge and can be a challenge, but hats off to them with this development of the Bushlinks dashboard. I'm hoping it's going to be well utilised from this season and moving forward.
Really appreciate you helping us out over this series in the last couple of months, Dale. I know I've learnt a lot, and I'm sure that those that have either been participating live or watching these videos afterwards would also have learnt heaps. So thanks again for your help.
No problem at all. Thanks, Kate.
See ya.